Well, a very pleasant good evening. It's time for Startup Talk from Indian River State College with Mr. Tom Kindred.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to another segment installment of Startup Talk, the show designed to assist and help Treasure and Research Coast residents who want to start, grow, or accelerate their business. As I always say, what a great place it is to own and operate a business along the beautiful Research and Treasure Coast. We will spend time during our hour together this evening to highlight and create awareness regarding the very powerful and robust business assistance and support programs that exist right here in our communities at our very own Indian River State College. I am Tom Kindred, and I serve as the Regional Director for the Small Business Development Center here at IRSC. Underwriters for this segment of Startup Talk are the law firm of Dean, Mead, Minton, and Zwimmer, celebrating 30 years of service on the Treasure Coast, on the web at deanmead.com. And our friends at Harbor Community Bank, banking the way it used to be. Looking for a better banking experience? Discover the Harbor Community Banking difference. Stop by a local branch and speak to a customer service representative or loan officer today. Harbor Community Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC, and as always, our very good friends at Express Printing of Port St. Lucie. So, Greg, how are you this evening?
Doing well.
All right. Listen, we got a studio full. We got phone lines full. Big show tonight. I want to get started with a quick recap of what's going on out in the community in terms of business assistance and support and resources for disaster relief and physical damage relief and economic relief. We have taken a number of bridge loan applications here at the SBDC at IRSC. Had our first banking committee meeting yesterday and approved a number of those loans. So there's going to be some businesses getting some help here very quickly, hopefully in the next literally couple of days, to help them stay up and running, deal with that physical damage, and deal with that economic loss brought onto the business through Irma.
I still see some that are still boarded up.
Well, and I like I told you, there's that very daunting statistic that floats around out there that 40% of businesses that close after a disaster never reopen. So it is important that people are aware of and take advantage of these business assistance programs after a disaster like Irma, and the bridge loan is kind of the first step in that. The SBDC at IRSC is the point organization for that bridge loan, and we encourage people if you need some access to some cash to repair, to get open, to restock the shelves, the bridge loan could be a solution for your problem. So we encourage you to get in touch with us. But that's we're certainly getting some response on the bridge loan. We have in the studio with us, and we have on the phone line, we've got a representative here from FEMA. We've got Mrs. Nikki Gaskins. Welcome to the show, Nikki.
Thanks for having me.
We've also got with us Mr. Q Mackey, who is with the Office of Disaster Assistance at the SBA. Welcome to the show, Q.
Thanks, Tom.
So let's start with FEMA. We're going to start with Nikki real quick, and we're going to get kind of a rundown on FEMA. So, Nikki, kind of tell us, what is FEMA? What is the mission of the organization?
I think the big focus right now for FEMA is to assist the survivors of this hurricane. As everyone knows, it was a tragedy, and so we've come into the state to kind of help people get back onto the road to recovery. And one of the big things we are stressing right now is that if anyone's been impacted directly by Hurricane Irma and has suffered some type of loss or damage, to go ahead and start the registration process. That's going to get the ball rolling and get people back on the road to recovery. We're trying to really push right now to have people go to our website because, as you can imagine, Irma impacted the state significantly. So many people are calling our phone number, so if they do call, which is an option, they can expect a bit of a wait because our phone lines are overwhelmed right now. So if you can go to our website, that's disasterassistance.gov, disasterassistance.gov. If you want to go ahead and dial the number, you can, but again, have some patience. That number is 1-800-621-3362 or 1-800-621-FEMA. That's going to get the ball rolling to get you on the road to recovery. We like to tell people that our programs are designed to provide the basic essentials to get you back on that road to recovery. And a lot of people often ask us, well, I applied. Now, what could I possibly qualify for? Well, the biggest thing, obviously, is home repairs. We want to get you back into your home. Our main goal at FEMA is a couple of things. We want to get you back in your home as quickly as possible so that it's sanitary and, most importantly, safe and habitable. And so it starts with us. We often tell people, we are not going to get you back to your pre-disaster condition. That's not what FEMA's individual assistance does. Where we don't make you whole, that's where the Small Business Administration comes in to fill in the gaps. We're here to also supplement insurance. When you apply to FEMA, we often try to tell people, please, please, please file with your insurance first, because we can't come back and duplicate what your insurance. If your insurance agrees to pay for your roof or some type of other damage related to your house, we're not going to go back and say, okay, we're going to pay for that too. So it's really critical that when you register, you make sure you file with your insurance company first, and then FEMA is going to want to see that documentation. Obviously, we want to know, what they're going to cover before FEMA decides to step in. Once you register with FEMA, again, that gets the ball rolling. That's going to eventually get you in touch with the Small Business Administration, because our federal aid, which you don't have to pay back, we don't offer loans. Our federal aid is to get you back on your road to recovery. Long-term assistance starts with the Small Business Administration.
Right. Okay. All right. Makes sense. So, again, let's make sure we've got these right. It's disasterassistance.gov.
Correct.
And it's 1-800-621-FEMA.
Yes.
So now, real quickly, again, there's been an awful lot of talk. Obviously, our area wasn't as affected as some areas. So there are recovery centers set up in areas. Is there a recovery center here in St. Lucie County or along the Treasure Coast?
There's not one here, and a lot of people assume that when FEMA comes in, FEMA makes the call where those disaster recovery centers go. That's not. We come in here, we're merely guests of the state. Working closely together with the state, they tell us where to open those disaster recovery centers, and more continue to pop up. The first one opened last week in St. Johns County, or about a week and a half ago. So more will likely continue to pop up. Right now, if people do want to go ahead and register, they can go to the Fin Center here. That's the closest one that's open for a few hours, and then we also have teams going out into the field. I think the closest one here is in Palm County right now at the
Palm Beach County.
Yeah, Palm Beach County,
right.
Carolyn Sims Center. If people have questions, that's the closest one to here at
But
the
just
moment.
because we don't have an actual disaster recovery center, that doesn't mean you can't get FEMA assistance.
Definitely. Some people just like that one-on-one personal face-to-face interaction, so that's why those are an option. But they certainly do not have to go to a disaster recovery center to register. They can, again, even if you do decide to go to a DRC, to speed up the process, go ahead and register first, because then when you go to the DRC, you can get any questions. You can check the status of your application too.
Okay. All right. Nikki, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. It cleared up a lot of things about FEMA. You guys do great work.
Thank you.
Very appreciative of FEMA and very appreciative of the work you're doing. Let's turn to Mr. Q Mackey. Q, you with us?
I am, Tom.
All right. Now, Mr. Q Mackey is with the Office of Disaster Assistance at the SBA, which Nikki mentioned. So, again, what is the...
He's on the right show if you're talking about disasters.
That's right. He's on the right show. This show is usually a disaster, yes. What is the Division of Disaster Assistance within the SBA? What is the mission of your division?
It's a completely unique element within the Small Business Administration. Now, as you know, Tom, the SBA exists for the sake of helping small businesses get up and going and stay going. This is the only program within the SBA that, in addition to small businesses, actually makes assistance available to businesses of any size, to most private nonprofits, and importantly, to homeowners and renters in the aftermath of a disaster such as Hurricane Irma.
Okay.
And in fact, most of the assistance, in terms of proportion or ratio, however you want to put it, in the disaster assistance of the SBA does go to homeowners and renters by far.
All right. What types of loans are available to businesses from the SBA?
Okay, there's two types. The first one, if a business had physical damage to their building, to their vehicles, the machinery, if their supplies were ruined and need to be replaced. That's considered a physical disaster loan, and that's up to $2 million is available at rates just a little above 3%, as low as 3.3%, with terms as long as 30 years, depending whether you have credit available elsewhere.
Okay.
The second type is called an economic injury disaster loan, and this is to help a business meet its ordinary operating expenses that it would have, that it's having difficulty because of the disaster, working capital, in other words. And again, up to $2 million. The rates and the terms are the same.
Okay.
Either or, the ceiling for business loans is $2 million. So it could be $1 million physical, $1 million economic, or all one or all the other, or any combination. But it's not $4 million maximum. It's $2 million.
$2 million maximum. Okay. How does a business begin the process of acquiring an SBA loan?
Well, okay, they would have to apply, of course. One place they could go is to the SBDC and talk to,
talk to me. That's right.
Talk to you, exactly. They could I'm going to give you a phone number if people want to get a pencil ready, 800-659-2955, or online. Incidentally, we're in the exact same situation that was just described by Fema. The phone lines are, you're gonna wait. So online, you can go to sba.gov/disaster, and you can apply directly through the website. You can also go to a DRC, just like FEMA. And in addition to the DRCs that are out and continuing to pop up as the recovery process rolls forward, there's also a handful of business recovery centers. We have in Collier County, Pinellas County, and Duval County so far.
Okay. All right. Okay, so, and again, I think it's worth noting, too, that you talked about the terms. Your terms are somewhat advantageous to business, that you've got long amortizations on your loans. You've got some low interest are features of the SBA loans, are they not?
Absolutely. The whole program, Tom, is designed to be an affordable way to get the funds that you need to recover from the disaster. This was decided as long ago as the 1950s. This program's been operating largely under the radar, under the awareness of the general public. And however, if you've had the misfortune of having a disaster in your area, you might be familiar with SBA Disaster Assistance. But for the most part, people are not aware that the SBA is involved in this. And like I said, not to be repetitious, that the bulk of the assistance that it provides is maybe a little surprisingly to homeowners and renters.
Okay. And again, these are loans in a traditional sense. They're a loan, so you're going to have to follow the same guidelines that you might follow at a bank. You're going to have to provide collaterals and financials and tax returns, will you not?
Yes, above $25,000. One difference is that this is a loan from the government. This is not, like a guaranteed loan that goes through a private bank. This is direct from the government.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's cover it one more time. So if you're looking for an SBA disaster loan, whether it be economic injury or physical damage, you can go to the 800-659-2955. Is that correct?
That is correct, Tom.
And it was sba.gov/disaster.
That'll get you to where you want to go. Yep.
Okay, all right. Or you could contact us at the SBDC at IRSC, and we could help get you to the right place. And again, as we've talked before, we are responsible for the bridge loan, the bridge small business bridge emergency loan, which our bridge loan, kind of as the name implies, bridges that business to that long-term SBA loan. So ours works in collaboration with your loan. The bridge loan works in collaboration with that SBA loan. Q, we appreciate you taking time out of your evening to be with us and talk about the SBA. We've talked about it the last couple weeks. I really appreciate you coming online and talking to us. So real quickly, in closing this segment, Nikki, anything else you'd like to add real quickly?
We're just really stressing to people, register, register, register. If you've been impacted, register. That's the first step.
Okay. And Q, closing words from you from the SBA?
Sure. Whether you're a business, a nonprofit, a homeowner, or a renter, there is help available to help you get your recovery going and get the funds that you need. But we don't actually know who you are until you apply. So again, if you're a homeowner, renter, register with FEMA. If you're a business, you can just get directly in touch with SBA. But you have to make the first move.
Okay. All right. Again, Nikki and Q, thank you so much for taking time out this evening to be on the show. Appreciate it. With that, Greg, good information, good recap.
Great information.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and, in talking about the SBA, getting you back on your feet, it is interesting because since the hurricane, a lot of checks have not arrived. I mean, and it's like, there are a lot of people that are just now getting back into their businesses, even though it's been, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, I think it is that little bridge that you might need.
That's right. That's right.
Keep your business
well,
going.
And I think like Q said, too, so many people aren't really aware of these programs, and that's why we've tried the last couple of weeks to really stress what's available out there and really stress, certainly our show's dedicated to the business community, so really stress to the business community what is available out there in disaster assistance. So really appreciated them taking time out of what I know is a busy schedule to talk to us this evening.
And you've written a bunch of those loans, huh?
We have
That's
indeed.
Great.
We've probably
Good
taken a couple of dozen applications, and we're going through them as quickly as we can. And we had our first banking committee meeting the other day and approved a good chunk of those loans.
That's
so
cool. Good
anyway,
stuff.
this evening's show, besides recapping all of what's available out there in disaster assistance, tonight we've got our very good friend from our very good sponsor, the law firm of Dean, Mead, Minton, and Zwimmer. We've got attorney Mr. Dennis Corrick. Good friend Dennis. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Hey, Tom. It's good to be here.
Is this your first time on the show, Dennis?
I believe it is.
Is it really? I'm really surprised. I've never had you before, Dennis.
We see Dennis at community events all over
That's right.
the place.
Dennis is what we call a player in the business community. Yes.
And I feel like just tonight I've got my master's in disasters. I mean,
yes. We've all gotten a quick master's in disaster.
Yeah,
here.
and if you lived on the Treasure Coast long enough, you've got
all you had.
different rounds.
That's right.
Of
all you had to do
education.
was be here from 2004. You've been here since 2004.
I was here in 2004.
Yes,
that's right.
So Dennis is here. We're going to talk a little bit about attorney-client relationships and why it's important to have an attorney as part of your business. So real quickly, though, I do want to cover just a couple of quick items that are coming up. Very cool stuff. Starting this weekend, speaking of, again, disasters, here's a great opportunity. We've got the Florida Department of Insurance has approved the insurance designation course. This course teaches the student required information to become a licensed, accredited claims adjuster with the state of Florida. Dennis, do you think we're going to have a need for some claims adjusters out there?
I think many claims need adjusting right now.
By taking this course with IRSC, the students that pass the course will not be required to take the state test, saving them the time and money. At the completion of this course, the student can apply for their license designation as an accredited claims adjuster, ACA as we call it, from the state of Florida Insurance Department. Adjusters can cover any and all general lines, home, auto, commercial, marine. The ACA designation is also required to become a public adjuster. So we've got that class.
Boy, did you guys move fast on that.
Well, we did. We moved very quickly on this because, of course, the insurance industry called us and said, we've got a need for adjusters.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about CCTI, flexible. We can move quickly. So we put the course together. It starts this Saturday, and there is still room in the class, but I can tell you that class is filling up quickly. So that class will take place on the main campus Saturday the 30th. Through October the 8th. So anyway, got that claims adjuster class. If you are interested in becoming a claims adjuster, that is a great place to start and get going. We've got How to Start a Small Business. That'll take place on October the 4th down at the Blake Library, down at Stewart on Monterey Road, taught again by our good partners at SCORE. And we've got one of my favorite upcoming new classes, the Remote Pilot Certificate Training class.
Drones.
The drones. Part 107, Remote Pilot, is the new FAA commercial drone regulation and certification that allows drone pilots to fly small, unmanned aerial systems for business purposes. Again, Dennis, when you bought your drone and you're just out there flying it around as a hobbyist, you're good. But if you want to start making money with it, you need your FAA Part 107.
Working in agriculture, I'm learning more and more what people are using these drones for, infrared and all sorts of analysis.
Infrared?
Infrared for crop analysis. Yeah, looking for what's in the soil and where the moisture is.
Agriculture is a big part of the drone movement, absolutely.
Wow.
So again, here's an opportunity, responded to the marketplace, offering this class to get people prepared to take that test, the Part 107. So if you are trying to earn a nickel with your drone, you need to get your Part 107.
And as I stressed last week, the FAA will be out there.
That's right. And I don't want to try to remember what our instructor said on the show a number of weeks ago, but the fines, they weren't inexpensive.
50,000 up.
You're right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So, again, real quickly, all you got to do, I encourage everyone to go to that www.irscbiz.com site. If you get there, you click on that icon, event schedule. I'm telling you, go into October. There's probably, I'm going to say, 25 different classes being offered through the month of October. Everything from basic Microsoft Office, process improvement for your small business, the remote pilot certification training, personal trainer certification, Excel, just all kinds of classes going on, as there always are at the CCTI at Indian River State College.
That's what Dennis can get into, personal trainer. What do you think?
That's it. That's it.
As I always say, back when I was in business, if I had taken the time to become engaged in and participate in all the business assistance programs at Indian River State College, I am confident I could have been a better manager, owner, and operator of the college. Its president, Dr. Massey, and the Board of Trustees have done an incredible job of building a very powerful one-stop shop for business assistance and support through the Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute. The EDI, as we call it, is made up of the Florida Small Business Development Center, the Corporate and Community Training Institute, and our Pioneer Business Incubation Program. You can always get the latest at www.irscbiz.com and check out that events calendar. So with that, before we get into our discussion tonight with Mr. Corrick, I'll turn it back to our co-host, Mr. Greg Wyatt, to recognize and highlight our underwriters and sponsors for Startup Talk.
Startup Talk is being underwritten by the law firm of Dean, Meade, Minton, and Zwimmer, celebrating 30 years of service on the Treasure Coast. Practice areas include commercial litigation, tax and business law, real estate development, agricultural and water law, trust, probate, and estate planning. On the web, deanmeade.com. And by Harbor Community Bank, banking the way it used to be. Are you looking for a better banking experience? At Harbor Community Bank, our customers' needs are our top priority. Whether you're looking to finance a dream home or open a small business line of credit or send your first child off to college, Harbor Community Bank is ready to assist you every step of the way. Why wait? Discover the community banking difference. Stop by your local branch and speak to a customer service representative or loan officer today. Harbor Community Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Dennis, I think you and I have sent our last child off to college. Is that right?
I was going to say, they talk about sending the first child to college. It's the second child that's the hard one.
That's right.
And beyond that, it only gets steeper.
Yes. So yes. My second one is on his way on his college career. So. Again, welcome to the show, Dennis. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. Longtime good friend. You've been a big supporter of all that we do at the college in terms of business assistance. Obviously, Dean Meade's been a huge supporter of what we do at the college in terms of business assistance. And as Greg pointed out, you're very, very involved and engaged in local business the local business marketplace. I think you serve on the board of a number of the EDOs around the county. So we appreciate all that you do. So again, welcome to the show, Dennis. And let's start with a little bit of your professional background. How did you get to where you are today with the law firm?
Well, the law is not my first career. I'm a little like you. I have done other things. What is it Nikki said? Not my first rodeo. This is at least, depending on who you count, it's my third or fourth rodeo. But I have now been practicing law almost 20 years, and the vast majority of them here on the Treasure Coast with Dean Mead. And Dean Mead's a full-service business law firm. We have offices. We have 5 offices around the state, and we have a lot of broad and deep expertise in areas of business. But we're also aware of the things we can't do, and we have referral relationships with some law firms around the country and around the world that do some things that complement what we do. But the firm started as a tax firm out of Orlando, and has grown out of there. We've been on the Treasure Coast for 30 years, and obviously being in the Treasure Coast for 30 years, we've got some deep roots in agriculture and in the family succession issues that come along with agricultural businesses, and that's where our practice has extended from. We have tax expertise and business litigation expertise and business structure and business succession expertise, and a lot of real estate expertise, and that's primarily my area. I mean, I work with business law, but a lot of what I do is commercial real estate and agricultural practice and so forth.
Which was like a natural step to get you to estate planning too.
Absolutely, and I mean, estate planning is a little like tax planning. You don't do it when you're in the hospital.
Well, tax planning
you don't do it on April 13th.
Tax planning is part of estate planning.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you plan things out, and you look at structure, and as a business matures, that starts to be the thing you look at. And it's not just who's going to own the business. I mean, it's who's going to run the business, and how are you going to run the business, and how are you going to transition from somebody that's my age in their 50s who isn't probably knock vinyl here, isn't going to keel over tomorrow, but still looks out there and says, I don't know that I want to be doing this when I'm 75. Somebody needs to transition in and start with some of the responsibilities. But I'm also not at death's door. I'm not willing to stay home all day long and watch TV. So it's all a part of planning for the future.
Sure.
Acknowledging what's coming.
And one of the things that I've always been so impressed with your particular law firm and the lawyers that are in your law firm, Brad, Lee, and Michael certainly, and yourself, is that you guys really can make that leap from lawyer to business person. You really do have a great, remarkable business acumen. It's not just about law, but it's also understanding how businesses work and understanding different business models, and that's what I've always really enjoyed about having the conversation, and certainly the support of your lawyers and your law firm with what we do. We've brought incubator clients over, and we've had initial meetings where they've Michael has provided some early conversations and assistance and guidance as to how these people launch a business. So that's what I've really been always impressed with, is how you ladies and gentlemen at D Mead, Minton and Zwimmer can really make that leap right into business.
Well, I think one of the things that's the strength of our firm is that we have some diversity. We have some diversity in experience. Like I said, I went back to law school in my 30s. I owned my own business. I've done other things before I came into it. We have a CPA/attorney, Brad, and Michael, who came from an agricultural family and has operated agricultural businesses all his life and been involved in them, and you get those perspectives. And I mean, a lot of it is law, but a lot of it is also, hey, let me share this person's mistakes and my mistakes and a little bit of my experience, and I'm going to introduce you to Tom down the street at the SBDC, and I'm going to tell you where some of these resources are, and saving you a couple of steps. Right. And I mean, when you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own, I mean, my business was a retail business, and so I stayed there. I'm there all the time.
What did you do?
I had a wine shop. I was in the wine business for 10 years before going back to law school.
Here locally?
No, I was up in Jacksonville and Daytona Beach.
Okay.
But I had my wine shop in Jacksonville, and after that, I went into the wholesale side of it. So I worked in distributorship. I've owned a small business, and so on.
I always wondered how you were had such a great ability to deal with stress, Dennis. You've always been.
It's the wine.
It's the wine.
Yeah.
You just have to keep your blood blood level right, balanced.
He just kept a few cases over 20
Right.
years.
That's right. It does nothing but get better.
Dennis, we do, and I promise this is a true statement, but we actually teach, as you know, I did a little teaching. You've been a guest speaker in a number of my classes, but we do teach. It's actually a test question, and it's what two professionals does every entrepreneur need to engage? And do you know the answer to that question, Dennis?
I would like to think I do, but I'll go ahead and let you answer it.
The answer to the question is an attorney and an accountant. So
I thought bail bondsman was in there.
That's a good one, Greg. I'm going to add that.
No,
as
if
a
you
trick
don't have the
question.
attorney, you need a bail
You need a
bond.
bail bond.
That's right.
Yeah, good point, Dennis. Boy, did I ever learn those lessons the hard way. Yes. So we actually teach that concept is that while you've got to do a lot of things as an entrepreneur and a small business owner, you've got to be in charge of sales, you've got to be the bookkeeper, But at the end of the day, the two professionals that you really need to be engaged in are an attorney and an accountant. So talk a little bit about why that statement is true and why it's important that as a small business owner and as an entrepreneur, why do you need that relationship with an attorney?
Well, an attorney can help you with bringing the experience in from other areas. If you look at a business loan document, you're starting your first business and you're looking at a business loan document. It really helps to sit down with somebody who's looked at 75 loan documents in the last couple of months and says, you may look at it and say, well, it's all in tiny type, so it's all probably pretty much boilerplate. And almost every time I look at one, I read through it. Yes, 90% of it is standard to a loan transaction, and then one thing jumps out and you say, whoa, wait a second. This one doesn't belong here. This is not like the others. This is an unusual term. And a lot of times you go back to the lender and they'll say, that's left in from a previous transaction and it has nothing to do with this transaction. And so we'll take it out. Or it's something that, that's just some oddball thing that this lender requires and it may be onerous. And a lot of times, and this happens more in residential real estate transactions than in commercial transactions, but we look at these instructions from a bank, and they're internally inconsistent. They tell you, absolutely, you must do this in order to close, and then something else tells you have to do this, and it's inconsistent with it. And you call them up, and you say, well, these are inconsistent. They say, well, yeah, you can just ignore number 10. Well, so we'll put that in writing. Oh, I can't do that. But those are the sort of things where just somebody with a couple of scars, a little bit of experience in that sort of thing. That I'm going to read a loan document. If you bring it to me to review, I'm going to read a loan document, but I'm going to look through it, and again, I'm looking at it like, okay, standard, not standard, standard, and then we're going to talk about you need to understand the things that are standard, the things that you have to do. You have to pay things, you have to pay them on time, you have to pay interest, you have to pay penalties if you're late.
Naturally.
But there are the things that are out of the ordinary that you may either want to push back on, or you may want to go somewhere else. Or there are things in there that may be deal killers. And if somebody more and more, a lot of these things are written by non-attorneys, and so there may be language in there that has unintended consequences, and you just need to think those things through. And the consequences can be huge. If you end up litigating with a lender, that's an expensive, painful proposition.
And you're just touching on loan documents. And it really involves any sort of agreement: franchise agreement, dealer agreement, lease agreement.
I do a lot of real estate, and people think of title commitments and title policies and title issues as something sort of secondary. But I'm telling you, if you find out when you're going to sell your property that you don't have legal access, and it's happened several times. It's happened several times this year in transactions I've been involved with. You have to go do some research and find out. Maybe they're just saying you don't. They missed something, which is what happened in this most recent one. But sometimes there's a real problem. Somewhere back down the road, saved a few steps and screwed something up. And that driveway you've been driving on or that road you've been coming in on, you may not have rights to. And it's just something that it isn't always a huge issue to resolve.
But could be.
But it is a huge issue if it's unresolved.
Right. Makes sense. Now, look, there's no secret. Obviously, attorneys aren't inexpensive, especially if they're experienced and have the kind of knowledge and business acumen that your team does. But is there a value versus price kind of issue here, like you're talking about? I mean, is it because that small business owner or that entrepreneur that's starting out, it's almost natural for them to say, you know what, I've got more important things. I've got rent. I've got to buy the delivery van. I've got to, and do you think sometimes that attorney relationship gets maybe pushed to the back because of that fear of the price?
I think it does, and it's not an unreasonable question, but I think, like so many other things, you kind of have to do triage. I mean, if you're, in terms of the size of your business, this particular agreement is a few percentage points of your gross, and it's somebody you've known for a long time, somebody you trust, then you may not be relying on written documents at all. You may just be doing things on a handshake basis. But I mean, if it's some huge undertaking that's going to be a big part of your revenue,
like franchise agreement, like taking on a line of equipment,
coming in or going out. I mean,
Right.
if you're stepping up into an expensive lease or a long-term lease because it looks like a great deal, or if you're signing on to a contract that has the ability to make your business, that's one of those things I think you want a little bit of guidance on. Yeah. And it can be, if somebody has written it for you and has brought it to you to sign, that's a little bit of attorney time to read and give you some counsel and so on, and that's a good investment. If you're starting from scratch and the attorney's writing something, that can be a little more involved, particularly if they don't know your business.
And Tom, as you mentioned, you hear so much in the news about franchising disagreements.
Right.
You see it on CNBC every day.
Right. Well, franchises are just so expensive today and so complex, and I mean, I can't imagine trying to enter into one of those agreements without an attorney.
And they're by definition an unequal relationship. I mean, if you're a small businessman and you're driving for, you're making deliveries for my small business, we're sort of equal, and the odds that you are going to create something that's tremendously one-sided and has the potential to get me in a real pinch is less likely than if I am franchisee number 24,000 and you have a form that's a take it or leave it form where I have to put a significant portion of my life savings up there on the line, and you read through those things, and I mean, you've looked at them, Tom. Some of those I've been handed franchise agreements, and I just slid them back across the desk and said, you really need to look somewhere else, because you won't make money, and if you do, they get it. And
Right.
or there's a million little nibbles here and there, or you're making commitments to do everything through them. Some of them can be great opportunities, but here be dragons. There are risks here.
Now, and again, through my experience, and I had to learn it the hard way, but so often and more often than not, it's less expensive. While it may be a little seem expensive, it's always less expensive to deal with these issues up front than it is to try to play catch up after the problem has begun. Is that a fair statement? Is that?
And I want to take it a step beyond that and talk about a longer term relationship with an attorney, because that's really that's really where some value comes in, because generally an attorney is going to charge for their time. And so time is literally money. And we sit there and we have an introductory meeting and we're talking, and and I'm learning about your business and so on, and you've brought me an agreement that's a make or break agreement for you. We've worked it through, and you've taught me some things about your business, and I know what your franchise agreement is. Maybe I've reviewed your lease too. I know a good bit about your business. So if you call me and you have something else come up, if I've got that background information about you, then that's a much more efficient transaction. You can say, we both know that I have a general idea of what your lease terms are. I have an idea of how, and if you come to me with an agreement, this, like I said, this make or break agreement that is going to maybe the difference between taking your business to the next step and sort of doing status quo. It helps for me to know, hey, you're going to be at the peak of the demand in this contract just as your lease expires. And that's something for you to consider, because if you need, if you may be having to move at the point where you're delivering 110% of what you've ever had to deliver before, that's a little bit of background information. But you and I might not think to discuss that if all I'm doing is looking over this agreement that you
Right.
brought me for the first time, where we just met, and I'm looking inside the four corners of this agreement.
Right. So it really is about building a relationship with an attorney. I mean, it isn't transactional. You need a relationship.
If you're going to, if you're going to continue in this business, and if you're concerned about the cost of an attorney, it is more efficient to build some sort of relationship with someone you trust and who has some resources, depth of resource, and so on, and is going to be straightforward about you with you when they don't. I'm perfectly blunt about the areas that I don't have expertise in. I'm bringing a partner or bringing somebody from one of our other offices, but somebody that has some experience and knowledge in your area, knows a little bit about you. It could be a tremendous value.
Right. Okay. So let's kind of just hit on some specifics. I mean, what types of services should a business expect from a law firm like Dean Mead Mittens Wimmer? I mean, what should a business expect those services would look like and would be?
Well, in terms of the quality of service, I think you have the right to have a fairly prompt response, and to have some sort of idea when you ask a question as the timing for when you're going to get a response, and I think you both need to be realistic about that. I mean, you can't call somebody up with a 50-page contract at 3:00 and and expect an answer for breakfast.
Right.
But
What about dinner?
and it can be, and if it's not important to you, you need to say that, and if it is, that needs to be out there too. But again, if you've established a relationship, and most of the time it's a comfortable pace, and a day's turnaround is fine. But you call up and say, I have this tremendous opportunity, and they're walking in my door in 2 hours. That's if you've got a relationship and you haven't abused it, then that's something where if you've got a relationship, an attorney may be able to set things aside and move that to the front and give you a little bit of advice. But in terms of what our firm, like I said, we're a full service business firm. We have tax expertise, we have estate planning expertise, we have entity expertise, so we can form and document a transaction. An organization for you based on your particular needs and the tax structure and how you're going to be managing it and so forth. And we can do transactions from simple to quite complex, buying and selling businesses, assets inside businesses, and so forth. And that can be. In fact, I'm working on one now where we're selling an entrepreneurial business where a couple built it up and has done extremely well with it, but it's not all in neat little piles because they haven't they don't have outside shareholders, they don't have a lot of banks looking over their shoulder and demanding that they manage things in certain ways, and so cleaning something up in order to convey it out when they want to step out of the business. There's a lot of retroactive tidying to be done at that stage, and that takes some breadth of expertise. And we've got a tax attorney with a CPA, who's a CPA, and real estate, and others involved in it to straighten up some of these things and get them in a nice tidy package so that the buyer, who is bank financing, can do the transaction. And
it was interesting as you were going through that list of specific services, tax, entity, estate planning. It really is. It kind of follows the growth and development of a business.
It does.
You start. You need to be structured. So you start your relationship with the attorney that way, and then the business grows, and then you
maybe you
generate
start out
revenues.
as a tenant, and then you buy a piece of
property. Then it becomes a larger business. Now you've got to have some estate planning for your personal, wealth and personal growth. And then again, you talked earlier too about even succession planning now.
Right.
How do I exit the business? So really, a law firm and that relationship with somebody like yourself or somebody in a law firm like Dean Mead really can grow. You can grow within the firm.
Right, and we have the expertise. I mean, and I hit high points, but if you get to a certain size, there are employee stock ownership plans. There's ways to incentivize people who are not in your gene pool, who are not going to inherit the business, but you still want to keep them there, incentivize them to stay. And there are a lot of tools for doing that. And there are ways to. I mean, we've dealt with families where the last reasonable successor was anybody in the gene pool, and that's a dicey sort of thing to deal with. But it's possible, and there are ways to do that where we've established things where those in the gene pool get the revenue, but they do not get the management authority, and that's given to somebody else who gets another set of incentives.
That's an interesting concept.
Oh, it's always it is. It is.
Well, and succession planning has become a big issue, even with our SBDC. That's now, we're actually offering some, just like we offer courses in how to write a business plan and how to improve your sales. We're now beginning to offer some workshops and seminars in succession planning, because that's become a big issue as the next generation comes on to take over businesses.
And so many, part of the entrepreneurial spirit is believing that you have the skills and so on, and asterisk, maybe nobody else does. And if you want your business to survive at some point you have to start thinking about giving away some of that ownership. Sorry, not literal ownership necessarily, but giving away some of the tasks and assigning some of them to others, so that you have built something that has a life of its own and can continue beyond the point where you want to put 60 hours a week into it.
Right. How does an entrepreneur or a small business, how would they go about beginning a relationship? Is there something they should be looking for, in a law firm? Is there some high points they should be looking for? How do they begin this relationship?
Well, here in the 21st century, it's a lot easier to learn a little bit about an organization before you get in with them. I would, if you have friends in the business community, I would look for recommendations. But you can always go online. There's a tremendous amount of information on there. And our website has backgrounds and bios on all of our attorneys, and we're organized a little differently from a lot of other firms, and we have industry groups. And so we don't just have an estate planning department. We have an agribusiness industry team and a solar energy team and a business and real estate development team. And so we have cross disciplines on these teams. And so you can look at what experience a firm has, what sort of things they focus in, and every firm is not for everybody. There are intellectual property firms that do literally nothing else but intellectual property, and if you're not talking about trademarks and patents, they're going to send you somewhere else. But a business generalist firm, we have both broad experience and knowledge, but we also have a couple of super specialists. We have one of the nation's authorities on Section 1031 like-kind exchanges, who's one of our founding shareholders in Orlando, and we work with some organizations that document these like-kind exchanges, and we've drafted their documents. My partner has drafted their documents. That's a lot of deep expertise and so on. And so if problems arise, or if it's a sophisticated transaction, he participated in the swap among the Major League Baseball teams when MLB took one of the teams back, and it was all like a three-way like-kind exchange. That's some pretty deep. That's a deep bench, and that's the sort of thing you can learn from doing a little digging on the internet.
Right. Now, and again, I guess for a business too, small business starting out, again, a firm that has multiple attorneys with multiple disciplines, like you say, multiple experiences, probably a reasonable thing to look at, because you want that kind of multiple expertise.
Versatility.
Absolutely. Right. But by and large, it's still going to end up being a personal relationship. You're going to have a point person who is most closely aligned to what you do, and it may be the person with the tax and accounting expertise. It may be the guy with the real estate, agricultural farm experience, or something, and that'll be your point person. But in a good firm where you've got partnership, a good relationship among partners and breadth and so on, that person is going to be your entry point, but is going to be able to connect you to other resources. And again, most firms, sometimes that resource is going to be outside the firm, and that's important too, that person's going to be willing to say, yeah, this is something outside of our scope, but I can find you somebody who can help you with this.
Yep. Well, Dennis, again, like I say, this is a concept that we actually teach. That and it is. I promise you, it is a real test question. What are the two professionals that every business owner needs to become engaged in? Entrepreneur, specifically, become engaged in as they start their business and begin to launch that business. And it is an accountant and an attorney. And it just, again, I know for lots of people as they're starting out, they're kind of watching their budgets, and I think on the surface, attorneys usually sound expensive, but I think as we've talked tonight, it's more expensive not to have one.
It certainly can be. And I'll be fair. I mean, you can go 10 years without realizing the need for an attorney, but some of that's luck.
A lot of luck.
Dennis, again, want to thank you for joining us tonight, and again, great conversation about the importance of having that attorney relationship as a small business owner. A lot of moving parts in a small business today, and it's not gotten any easier in the last 20, 30 years to own and operate a small business.
It certainly has not.
I spent a little time with my good friend this morning, Greg Roslow. Again, I think, don't quote me, Greg will get on to me, but I think, didn't he tell us Rosslow's has been around 65 years?
You bet.
I can only imagine 65 years ago how easy things were compared to what he has to deal with today.
Absolutely.
So, again, Dennis, thank you so much for the conversation tonight. Thank you so much for all of your support of what we do at the Florida SBDC here at IRSC. Thank you for your support of the local business community through all your activities with the St. Lucie County EDC and all the other EDOs around our community.
Well, Tom and Greg, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I think he'd be a good broadcaster,
Dennis would be?
Right,
Yes.
right.
Well,
I'm thinking of succession planning.
That's good.
And I won't have to raise or lower the chair. We're about the same size.
He could be your co-commentator for IRSC basketball.
You never know.
There you go.
That's it.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another segment of Startup Talk. I want to thank all of our guests this evening, the SBA and the Fema, and our good friend Dennis Court from Dean, Mead, Minton, and Zwimmer. And I want to remind everyone that all the business assistance programs and resources discussed on this segment are available through IRSC's Dan K. Richardson Entrepreneurship Development Institute, engaged at every stage of enterprise. For more information on the EDI and its programs, visit irscbiz.com. And we'll talk to you next week on Startup Talk.
You have been listening to Startup Talk on WPSL Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com, webcaster to the world, WSTU Stewart, and WQCS Fort Pierce.